evening, morning, afternoon, whatever applies to you, and welcome back to yet another EuroLeague. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Keire and Nymaera to discuss all things week three of LEC. And indeed, week 4 will also be discussed. But before we do any of that, as you know, it is time for my patented Would You Rather, or in this case, I guess you could call it a which would you be more likely to forgive? Without further ado, Nymaera, I know you look confused, but don't worry, all will become clear. So, Nymaera, would you rather find out that your long-term partner had been cheating on you, or would you rather find out that your long-term partner has been stealing from you consistently, like the whole time during this relationship? So again, I could reframe this as like, which are you more likely to forgive? So presumably you find out about this indiscretion, and it's which one of the two would you be more likely to find a way past, I guess would be like the best way of putting it.
Oh,
someone who's been...
pretty easy. No.
Oh, it's so easy.
Okay.
Yeah, that is pretty easy. It's the stealing is the easier one to forgive. Like, cheating is like 100% red line for me. You know, that like stealing, I can understand there being some situations where, I can understand there maybe being a slim reason of like, it's just too hard to tell, or, you know, for instance, you know, what happens if someone doesn't want to feel like a burden and then ends up taking stuff for like treatment and or something else.
Okay, wait. I need to add some more context, I guess. So, for all the viewers as well, of course, let's set the bar. So basically, cheating would obviously just be beyond the parameters of whatever you and your partner have agreed, or like the terms of the relationship in the traditional sense or untraditional, depending on what your proclivities are. And stealing, I guess I need to up the ante a little bit. So let's say cynically and selfishly stealing when you yourself are not well-to-do and knowingly putting you in a more difficult financial situation. It's not you are a sugar daddy and they've been skidding a bit off the top.
No, but even then, like I understand
To a damaging degree.
Yeah, I can understand that, and that would still be like a what the fuck or whatever, but I'd still be more likely to forgive that than cheating, which is again just 100% red line. The stealing one, I'm like, okay, that's still like that in that particular case as well. Like that's just really shitty, and that's still probably not something which I would work past unless it was really exceptional circumstances or whatever. But it's still like better than cheating, which is just an absolute betrayal of trust.
Okay, well, what do you think, Keire?
See, you ruined it by adding more context, because I was just going to be like, stealing, because there's no way they're stealing more than I am. You know what I mean? I'm going to just steal. That's the bit that you didn't get it.
Steal it back.
No, not steal it back. It's like, that is to imply, of course I'm going to give forgiveness, right? Because the rate at which I am stealing from them is going to completely outstrip. It's like, please.
You heard it from Keire here first. Be the bigger parasite.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, please forgive me. And it's like, of course I forgive you. I have something to ask for myself. Now that I have forgiven thee, I have something to admit to. You see, guys, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. And that was something
Wise words.
Universally true.
Very wise words.
So universally.
Well, it's been a hot minute, but that one's probably up there with the shitting in every room of the castle one. I can't even remember what happened in that one now. We got to revisit some of the high moments.
Nymaera, you can't split two separate bits of excellent advice. You just can't split them. You just have to accept them both for what they are, which is, you know.
And, you know what I mean? And because, like, you see, guys, listeners of the Would You Rather section, all three of you, right? Me and Nymaera came. This is where you can see, right, where you get the moral grey, because Nymaera, a good person, came to the same conclusions as me, a not a good person.
Right answer, wrong method.
But we both chose the same option, and do you see, guys, how you actually end up with the George R. R. Martin grey, as both people can end up at the same conclusion, and they're objectively completely different sorts of human beings.
What about you, Rich?
I am inclined to agree, but the only, I guess, the main thing...
Which one? We've got very different kinds of logic.
Well, I will say that, you know, stealing... Well, I think the cheating thing is in most cases going to be harder to take than the stealing thing, I would imagine. But what I guess the thing I really wanted to know, though, is when you actually think about it, if you strip away some of the sort of visceral emotional stuff, where one probably does hit a lot harder than the other, is one actually better than the other? Because ultimately they're both just dishonesty, right? Like to a very large degree. Like I think what it takes, and don't get me wrong, again, I'm not saying like stealing is better or worse, or whatever, but to actually steal from someone like repeatedly, like to actually steal like money off someone repeatedly, that is fucking wild.
Right,
That
there
is
is no vow
crazy.
before there is no vow before God, right? Where it says you have to look after the material possessions, but there is in terms of your love.
Right. Anyway, and obviously, you know, the devil is in the detail. These things are all on a spectrum or whatever. Stealing a pound coin off the counter as you're on your way out is not the same as, you know, getting their bank details or whatever. And allowing some fucking rando when you're drunk to peck you on the cheek is not the same as, you know, the most extreme form of cheating. But obviously, the devil is in the detail a little bit. Like, for example, if let's say your partner liked to go out or whatever, and they went out, I don't know, once every 2 weekends, and they got drunk, and every now and then they like kissed another person while they were out, versus someone's been like siphoning off your life savings over like an extended period of time. That would be a lot worse, I would say, right? Like, so it is on a spectrum. It's not like one is absolutely worse than the other.
And again, both of these things happened. Like they're still not forgiven anyway.
Yeah.
Can I just say, Rich, there's actually a really somewhat famous story, if you like know about this. A guy in like Florida whose like girlfriend was going with like other like high rollers, and she was like, you know, spending like all this time like with these like high flying guys and cars and all that. And eventually, when it's like it got exposed, her husband was like, "Yeah, I knew it all along. Like, I just been like, you know, like stealing from you. Like what I was saying, it just been like what they were giving to you, I was taking. You were just getting so much. It's like I was. No, we were saying this person was actually.
Thanks, you're paying my dinners.
Yes, it was like, and it was like when it came to like the divorce like settlement.
Didn't you recognize like my Yeezys? Or...
No, but like in terms of this guy had like a massive like gambling dependency that was all based on his wife cheating on him, and absolutely.
Oh no, you can't. Yeah, you can't cut off the water from the source at that point. You know.
Yeah.
He really needs to get divorced.
Thank you, Florida man, for another wonderful story.
Another Florida man story. That's all we.
I mean, ultimately, obviously, they're both deal breakers, the way I described them, obviously, because it's something that's been happening for an extended period of time. So it's just going to be like, well, that's kind of screwed up, isn't it? So that person's probably gone. But yeah, I don't know. I guess my only point was like, maybe one feels worse in the moment, but is one really any better than the other? I don't know. I think when you like go past a certain threshold when it comes to like honesty or lack thereof, it doesn't really make much difference at that point, because you're talking about a separation from a person as well, right? And you could even argue actually that one is objectively worse in the sense that if someone betrays you by cheating on you over an extended period of time, you've not lost anything material, but your heart is broken, right? Whereas if they steal from you over an extended period of time, your heart is both broken and you're broke. So, you know, you've actually lost the material and the immaterial.
Financing of relationships.
Exactly. Again, this is official financial advice.
Includes a spreadsheet with the costs and gains from each date.
Yeah.
You also could be, you know, together and also just broke. You know what I mean? Just like the cost, you know what I mean?
Just like everyone ever on Jeremy Kyle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, true. So yeah, but both good options, really. It's, you know, however you like your eggs.
I'm going to say, Rich, one person from where I live was on Jeremy Kyle, and they're probably one of the most probably one of the most famous episodes of Jeremy. And then if I was to show you the episode, you would know, like, as you.
Was he the guy that chucked a envelope at Jeremy Kyle? Was he like?
No. I can't tell you the episode, because then you'd be able to deduce, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty open.
You would have had to self-dox, you would have.
Yeah, I just self-dox myself, so I'm not going to do that. I'm pretty open about like where I'm.
Well, I'm going to guess this guy had a Scottish accent, so that'll.
Yeah, but he's actually like. Yeah, but he's actually like from exactly where I live. Do you know what I mean? And
he's in you.
Sorry, FBI, you've probably already given too much information.
No, there's so many Scottish people in Jeremy Kyle. Like,
Okay, you say that's
incredible numbers.
Right. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Obviously, because we're going into the last week of regular season, we do have a bunch of messy playoff shenanigans to sort of break down and work out what the hell's going on. But before we do that, I want to talk about, and yes, it is third week in a row, and yes, it is algorithm farming that we're doing this. We are going to have to talk about Lost Ratones again. Before we talk about them from a gameplay perspective, I actually wanted to talk about them from the angle of what was completely inevitable, which is, I don't know if you guys have seen, but if you go on Reddit, basically every second thread is, this is why franchising sucks, or Riot should let Lost Ratones in the LEC for free, or...
You see, you went too far. The first one was good.
Well, and then the banger, which is, Lost Ratones don't need the LEC. The LEC needs Lost Ratones, and basically quotes back a bunch of numbers on them. And look, there is some merit, I wouldn't say to the arguments necessarily, but there is some, at least, factual truth to some of what they're saying. Like, undoubtedly, I mean, I watch, because I'm unholy levels of base, I watch LEC on YouTube, so I can actually rewind and stuff, so I can see obviously the view counter as well. Yep, it's this new tech, Keire, new tech.
I only acknowledge the Twitch.
Well, I think little prediction, not related to anything. I actually think, here you go, this is like almost whatever that Sanchovi's wife person, when she's like, Dr. Disrespect isn't just done, he's done, whatever. I actually think Twitch will be done as a streaming platform, not just at the forefront of gaming, but as a streaming platform within 5 years. I actually think they are cooked, unless they change ownership, in which case I reserve the right to, back off this prediction. I think Twitch will literally not exist.
Conglomerate has just bought Twitch, extending its lifeline for the next...
I do not think Twitch will exist in 5 years.
Well, Twitch has introduced a lot of different stuff in the last couple of years to try and change like revenue share between creators and itself. Basically, Twitch has this problem where there is just a whole swathe of creators it just doesn't make money off of. The very largest streamers it does, but then then a bunch of other people just like your mid-tier streamers. They're fine. But there's so many like small-tier streamers which take up so much bandwidth on Twitch, but just don't give anything back. But you have to have that availability, because that's the whole dream of Twitch, where you have like the ability to make it from very, very small to very, very large. But Twitch is continually losing out on a bunch of most of their creators, I would say. And of course there's other like high profile things, like TwitchCon was really, really badly managed, and I think TwitchCon is like gone now. That one's completely just dead and buried.
Yeah, I mean, lots after some of the high profile stuff that's happened there as well. Like, creators aren't even just going to show up anymore, I wouldn't imagine. So
yeah, it's stuff with Emery around the Fanny, and then the whole thing about it being, if you want to have a show at TwitchCon, you must do a meet and greet.
Yeah.
So even though the creators knew it was probably unsafe, still ended up doing it. And then obviously some incidents happened where like some people, and where security was completely off. Oh, there was another thing too, couldn't bring in their own personal security, had to use, or like in the case of Emery, couldn't, so then they had to use venue security. They didn't do their job, and then they laughed about it afterwards, and it's like, oh my god, you've just done everything wrong on all accounts. Why would any creator of any size ever turn up to this again?
I mean, Twitch just seems like an Amazon write-off at this point. Like, I don't know, and the CEO. I mean, but Twitch, even as Twitch as a platform, is just shit. It's terrible. Like, if you look at the actual viewer experience on YouTube, I just sound like such a YouTube chill right now. But
you can't rewind. Okay,
yeah.
You get all your.
You can if you sub now. You can if you sub, you can rewind.
Right, you can't use your favorite emojis. You can use your favorite emojis, right? Okay. You can't get access to revods unless you sub, right? There's like 5,000 hours of adverts, right?
Yeah. Oh, the ads are so bad.
God forbid you ever change which channel you're watching, because your ad timer actually resets, right? So why would you ever? Okay.
And the quality of dog shit as well.
No, that's when the creator hasn't ran enough ads to have pre-roll off. So if you run adverts manually, you don't get pre-roll. So for instance, when I'm streaming, I make sure that I'm running like 3-minute blocks of ads, like almost twice in the breaks between games. So I have like an hour off, so I know that I won't get pre-roll for people coming in games. Now, of course, that does cut a lot of your revenue, but I mean, how else?
The fact that you have to do this is already like just a complete ball ache. Like, I mean, I don't know what's going on. Like, maybe my browser is blocking stuff or whatever. I feel like I never get ads on YouTube streams. I just never get ads.
Ad block for YouTube is very.
I just watched all of YouTube, all of LEC today, and there was 0 ads. Like, it's just going through the whole thing.
Can't break, Rich. Come on.
Well, yeah, true. Yeah. And also, as I said, the quality is also dog shit on Twitch compared to YouTube. Like, maybe
the two things
few
which
subs,
do
whatever.
better. The two things that it does better is just this is a bit more like this is a more subjective, but just the chat culture is different in Twitch, very different from YouTube. YouTube chat culture is pretty fucking awful. Like YouTube comments are probably the worst on average between all.
Viger V2, I'm pretty sure, was arguing with people in the YouTube comments, or like somebody with Viger V2's account was was hilarious. Not with his account, someone like pretending with the same username as him,
But
which was hilarious in its own right.
I mean, like each of the major socials has their own issues with the culture, and it's not. It is very amorphous, right? There are different parts of it which are louder at different times or whatever. I would say that probably Twitch isn't great, but it's mainly memes. YouTube is just straight up aggressive and like that they want to be harmful, because on live comments they're really not great. And then stuff like Reddit and Twitter are whatever. They're very variable, but on the whole they're fine because at least you can talk shit back of them if they get like too bad, really. But yeah, so Twitch has a slightly better chat kind of culture than YouTube. And then the other thing is discoverability. Discoverability of live streams on YouTube is fucking awful. If you're trying to go live on YouTube, it's genuinely terrible.
True.
Twitch is much better at giving you visibility than YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube is 100% chicken and then egg. Like, you have to already be established to get, like, and then just redirect the traffic. Like, people will not find it on their own. That is true. But anyway, enough about how Twitch is definitely going to die within a few years. Let's talk about, this topic on Lost Ratones and this whole idea of like franchising and so on. Now, again, obviously, it's super complicated. People have invested money and so on and so forth. But I want to talk about the underlying point, which is a truism, which is that as an observer, again, on YouTube, I wasn't monitoring the Twitch numbers as closely, but every time LR play, the viewership more than doubles. It just does. And by the way, I'm not touching Keire's stream. So obviously Keire has however many viewers he has while streaming. I don't know what those numbers are.
Oh, do you want to know how many he had today?
Yeah, sure.
Over 200,000. So this is while LEC had about 20,000 on Twitch.
Yeah. So okay. So actually YouTube is killing Twitch at the moment on LEC stream then, because it had like 60,000 on.
Yeah, all the real viewers just use.
Yeah, all the real boys. Get with the times, Nymaera, come on. Anyway, so he's got like 200,000 plus concurrent on Twitch, which is obviously viewership that he is, I don't want to say solely bringing, because obviously some of those people would be watching the mainstream, but he's definitely galvanized an audience of people who maybe, I don't want to say we're like necessarily losing interest, but he has made them more solid, reliable viewers, and he's definitely brought along new viewers as well who are specifically fans of the Bows and so on. So he's bringing in the viewership. The team themselves on the official broadcast are bringing in, like, I'm going to say conservatively, at least 2x viewership, at least to those games. So that does put us all in a very weird position, which is when LEC Versus ends, let's just say that they go out in the first round of playoffs. Let's just say that's what happens. What do you do with a problem like Los Ratones? Because is Riot really going to sit there and just let this golden goose disappear? Now, I will caveat this by saying at one point in time, both MKOI and KC were also seen in a similar light, where it's like you've cultivated these huge nationalistic fan bases, and Ibai and Kometo, respectively, are going to bring in these huge numbers. And I remember the same terminology being used, by the way, which is the league needs them more than they need the league. They obviously didn't necessarily fully agree with that because they ended up paying money to be in the league. But now that they are, I also feel that that's plateaued somewhat. Not that they're not good for the league. I think they have definitely been net positive for the league. But it's not like we're getting half of Ibai's live streaming audience like now watching the streams regularly. They're just not. Like the numbers don't show that. When G2 play a random team, it gets similar viewership to when KC play a random team. Like, we're not getting a sustained boost currently in 2026 that we did when they first joined the league. So what do we do with this problem, I guess? Like, I mean, obviously this is going to be a hypothetical. We're not telling anyone what to do. But Nymaera, I mean, how would you actually approach this if you're Riot Games?
So there probably needs to be a little bit more caveats to the numbers as well, because numbers on the whole in esports are going down. That's just been a thing that's happened the further we've gotten away from COVID, because people forget that the COVID bump was absolutely huge for esports. So that's one extra caveat to put in as well. But yeah, I think that the first year where you have KC MKOI and then the first year of Lost Returns or whatever is a very high bump. One thing which I would advise against is pandering too much to Lost Returners, because the problem, I'm not saying that they are or whatever, but however, there have been a lot of things which has obviously been leveraging their moment very, very well. In some ways, LEC were right to do this now. One, because actually it looks like they've been competitive. They've had great games. They've brought the numbers. But also, you're not going to get this project for another year, I don't think. I don't think they'll be able to do this for another year. As far as I'm aware, and as far as they've said, because that's the only thing, I haven't heard anything internally, I don't think the players are getting paid a crazy amount or anything, really. Lost Returns doesn't have a crazy amount of money behind it. So it's not like the players are doing this for financial reasons. They're not streaming their games anymore. So, like when they're live on stage, right? So when they're in ERLs, they were streaming their own perspectives. So at least they got huge like stream income and stuff. So I don't know how you can keep this project together ad infinitum. Eventually, it's going to run out of steam, or you have to replace certain players. And at that point, does the magic fade? Do you have the same draw for that? So there is. In some ways, I can understand the LEC striking while the iron's hot and saying, okay, this is the year we have to do this, get the rats in now, this is going to be good viewership. And I think that's worked very well for them. For what it's worth, I've enjoyed watching the games, I've enjoyed the content. And I think it has been, it's been a big reason for me to watch this, to be like, okay, well, let's see what they do. And I'm part of a bunch of different Discord servers which are not related to League at all. And that is the only games that they talk about there too. So just on a purely anecdotal level, I'm like, okay, this is pretty big. But then kind of bringing that back into the question, which I've so wonderfully skirted until this point with heaps and heaps of context, what does the LEC do? You have to dig deep. You have to dig your heels in for a little while and try and actually build up from grassroots again across Europe. I think doing stuff like road shows helps, and they are doing, 6 this year, right? Which are 3 by MKOI, 2 by KC, 1 by Riot Europe, which will be the summer finals, the big event. You need to do local events like that again. And I have to say, I actually think that LEC should be doing smaller scale local events as well. I mean, let's be honest, the Berlin studio only holds 200 and change people, right? It's not crazy amounts. You could go to I could name dozens and dozens of places you could do that in the UK. I'm sure you could do that in most countries in Europe as well. You probably should be investigating setting up some events from there too. Now, obviously you can't spend the entire year on traveling around or whatever, but realistically, I think for too long the LEC has not catered to Europe. It's catered to like this one small part of it, because everything has been in Berlin, everything's been around Germany, and part of that's because of COVID and whatever. But I think that Europe needs to be catered to as a whole again, and I think the roadshows are a good start. Outside of that, it's difficult though. I mean, I think a lot of people are waiting for the franchise system to collapse. I think they are at this point. I think a lot of teams are on maintenance mode. I don't think they have the resources to make, region-changing movements, and even a lot of the top teams or teams which have historically been top teams, I'm not sure they have a crazy amount to throw at it. Again, ad infinitum. You can't just keep doing this for forever. So I think in a lot of ways, I think a lot of Europe and a lot of people around the LEC are just kind of waiting for something of a bubble to pop, and then maybe we do get something like lots of orgs dropping out. In fact, this is the thing I talked about in Power Swipe the other week, in terms of, well, if there's only a handful of teams which can support themselves, because financially it's very hard for any team anywhere in esports right now. Maybe you have certain teams which are like the only 4 or 5 remaining which can actually field teams, actually going towards sister teams, because that's more sustainable to run 2 teams as one big org rather than have one team as a big org and then have an org which can't hold it together in a franchise slot. Maybe you do just get sister teams a la OGN way back in the day. Maybe you get promotion relegation or something like that. Obviously there's lots of different options you can go between, and maybe it even goes down to an open circuit. You just have roadshow events and you play week-long tournaments or something like that, back like the open circuit, and we've just gone way back to season 2 as God intended, right? But that's where things get really, really difficult. I have to say, I'm not decided. I'm really. It will come down to what the teams come to a decision for. Personally, I think franchising has to end in a way. I think it has to end in one form or another, because I think that the teams that are there, a lot of them have just been on maintenance mode for such a long time. We talked about this in previous episodes, right? I feel like it's done away with that dream of 5 players coming up through a league team system, through an open circuit, and making it to the top of the game. And I think every region has wanted to have that at some point. We had it with Griffin, Rocks, Tigers. We had it with Unicorns of Love in Europe way back when, right back at the beginning of things, really. For me personally, I think franchising probably does need to die at some point, but it can't be in such a way that it just collapses the scene. It needs to be an organized kind of dismantling of that scene, and that means that the teams that have to be on board with that too, which is a very difficult thing to do.
See, I'm in my full villain arc, right? If I'm Riot, I just say fuck all the teams, let them in, and
Really?
yeah, because
I just think it would be pandemonium. Wouldn't just everything
mate,
collapse?
these teams are these teams are such pussies. They won't do anything. Like, by the way, I'm not saying this is the right thing to do. This is not the right thing to do ethically.
This is the risk from to do.
No, this is I am Riot Games, and my job and my responsibility is to the shareholders. That's the hat I'm currently wearing, and this is what you.
There are a few shareholders, right? You as an overlord.
Yes. Well, whatever. Me and President. I am representing President.
Shareholders that bend. It is your mind.
I am representing.
It's like there's very few Riot shareholders. There's a majority Riot shareholders, isn't there? There's Tencent.
Yeah, it's whatever. I don't care if it's a CCP, whatever. Whoever I'm representing, I just let Los Ratones in, and that's it. Because ultimately, they are driving viewership like hell. The thing is, the model was never sustainable anyway. The model was always garbage. There was never a year, like we always talk about, like bubbles bursting and what. There was not a single year ever when a team was profitable in LEC, bar maybe 2016. No, they weren't.
They sold their crypto.
Yeah, they what? They accidentally sold a bunch of crypto, Richard. With this bit of Octodubia.
Okay.
Rick, if we're going to have an adult discussion, we need to have an adult discussion. Come on.
Okay, if G2's Umbrella Corp pays some money, brilliant. Anyway,
Oh man.
bar maybe Unicorns of Love and H2K like broke even in like 2016.
Bacada?
Oh yeah, let's just let in all the worst companies to fund our teams. We've definitely never had a moral complaint about certain sponsors coming in before.
Like, all these teams are just bleeding through their ass, and basically what we're talking about is what is the ethics around having them have 1 year where they all mega bled through their ass because they had to pay franchising fees. Well, actually, technically, they paid those fees over multiple years, but whatever, you get the point. It's like, how do we level out the 10 million or 8 million euros or whatever it was that these teams had to like pay to participate? And I don't know. All I know is I would rather just let LR in and then deal with that later, and maybe I'll find some creative compensation model or whatever where these teams that paid the fees are being subsidized for over a certain amount of time or something like that. I mean, let me remind you that when the league first started, when there was way more viewership, by the way, the whole of the players' salaries was being paid by Riot Games. That went on up until the end of season 4, by the way, before teams were ever actually, the stipend. Literally, players were just being paid out of the stipend.
That was what said it, apart from stuff like the open circuits, because that was the big draw to league. Was like, well, you're not going to get the big prize money of Dota or something like that, but you'll have a consistent league.
Yes,
is the consistent pay. That was one of the big draws.
Yeah. And like technically, you were allowed to pay players over the top of the stipend, but nobody did. The only ones that did like really early for a little bit were Fnatic, who were paying literally cash in hand, like actual cash in your palm. I'm not exaggerating. No bank transfers or anything like that. And then teams started to pay money like in a more conventional way from season 5 onwards, basically. But yeah, until then, and that, again, as I will restate, that was with much better viewership. So the model was never sustainable. The fact that it was franchising, all that franchising did in the way that they did it was allowed the teams to go to people and say, hey, this is a thing that's going to be around for a while because we can't be relegated. That's literally it. So they can't say, but what if your team gets relegated? It just eliminated that question. Franchising originally was meant to be a collective bargaining tool used to go to broadcasters to sell broadcasting rights. That's why the MLB app, for example, which was meant to be sold for 50 million in 2017, I want to say, was going to be such a big deal because it would be this trickle-down economics thing from the broadcasters through Riot, through the teams, where everyone in theory should be sustainable just on like a broadcasting deal alone. That deal never happened, and ever since that deal collapsed, there has never been anything even close to that happening. Not the LRP system, not collective sponsorships or whatever in the interim, never. And now they're trying to salvage it by allowing betting sponsors. Now, will some teams be able to do something and cover some of their costs with betting? Probably a bit, it'll help, but you can't really walk back the salaries that are currently existing to the level that you would need to actually have it be a profitable venture. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. So franchising
without any of the just like general costs of running an organization, running a broadcast, like running a facility, like, that stuff is really expensive, you know.
Yeah, so franchising is cooked. It was always cooked. And what you do, by the way, I'm actually going to agree with Nymaera, just in go a completely different way with it. I think you let LR in. I think you find a compensation model to like make the teams that are already in feel good about themselves and massively reduce their cost for a certain amount of time. And then you just open it all up so that anyone at that point can like get in, or at least somewhat open it up. Like what they've done with Versus, where obviously 2 teams are participating now, you have 2 teams be able to compete for a place, and they won't necessarily get it, but like relegation or whatever, you have some kind of fun way of
context here, by the way. One thing in context, I saw a post here earlier. I'm fairly sure that, you know, one of the big things about franchising is that it's meant to bring about stability. However, there has never been a single year, like 2 consecutive years, where the same lineup of teams represented the LEC. There was at least one rebrand or one team change per year, I believe, over the course of the franchise era, which was from 2019 onwards, I believe it was at that point. Every year, at least one team has changed name or changed organization, which, so obviously even the stability argument of franchising hasn't been entirely true. Now, there's caveats there too, you know, rebrands are rebrands. I'm not the same as like a complete org change, but there is a lot of caveats there, which franchising clearly isn't the be all and end all. Especially, look, if Riot's gone to this level to bring in ERL teams, which are not partner teams, not franchise teams coming into the LEC, clearly franchising is not hitting the nail on the head for Riot either.
Yeah. So yeah, that is what I would do. And I think I've actually weirdly, because, you know, maybe I'm sort of more known for generally sort of negative or glass half empty takes, let's say, over the years. I've actually never been a League of Legends doomer. When other like big content channels have been like, well, League is dying. Well, mate, these channels have been saying League is dying since like 2015, by the way. They've just been saying League is dying. I've never been.
Fortnite came out, they're like, oh, Fortnite will kill it. Yeah. Overwatch will kill it.
I've never been a League of Legends doomer until very recently. Like, League, in my opinion, is just my opinion, because anything can happen, and I'm open to see, you know, change my opinion as evidence changes. I think League is undoubtedly dying on the domestic level. I think it is in every region. It seems to me that all the metrics are basically trending downwards. So I think the Riot would be best placed to milk it for all it's fucking worth, and I think that involves having LR in. But yeah, Keire, what are your thoughts on this matter?
Can I just pull on that one? As someone who's watched basically all of League of Legends history, I can actually like quite safely say that, which is fucking a bit crazy, but genuinely, I would say the League ecosystem is dying. What I mean by that is the parity between teams. Teams like T1 have never been more successful. As in, T1 now is so much more successful than T1 of 2013. But the LCK, like CJ Blaze, MVP Ozone, Samsung, you know what I mean? That aspect of it is unhealthy. As in, it used to be maybe like 30, 20, 20, 15, 5. Now it's 85.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the ecosystem. But the thing is, I say this on the show all the time, League is like World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is dying, but it is so huge that it's death. It's now been, World of Warcraft been dying for 11 years now, okay? It's still the biggest MMO, biggest revenue, game development still huge.
Is it bigger than Final Fantasy 14? I thought that was huge.
Probably, like maybe just with China reopening again, right? But like, even if it's close, it took 11 years for it to die. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
In the funny sense, right? League is like that on the domestic level, whereas like the international thing, like right, what you're talking about, or like the ecosystem, you know, we broke viewership. And this is the danger, and this is going to look back to my overall view. The fair weather fan that shows up for the World Championship, right, and watches T1 win it, you know what I mean? That fan is good, okay? But Dota has this problem where like loads of people would show up to watch the international for the novelty of the 40 million tournament, right? But it didn't make the rest of the ecosystem like healthy, because all it basically done is it made TI really like top heavy, and then nobody else watched the rest of the scene. But the rest, for the amount of people who play the game, Dota and CS is a much more successful esport, as in by ratio of player. So let's just say like CS maybe has like I think the average like monthly player is now like 3 million or 6 million in CS, whatever the fucking number is, right? The CS majors maybe got like 3 or 4 million people watching it, that ratio's like almost 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Where league is still at the 100, not the hundreds, maybe it's like the 10-to-1s, the 20-to-1s, right? That conversion ratio is like bad in the esports side. It's a more casual game, but you can begin to see the problem. For me, you can't undo the damage that was done with franchising. I don't even think franchising was the damage. The damage was the regional leagues. That was where the league died. I'm being in terms of what I knew of it in 2013, and then by 2015 it was gone when IEM was like not IEM. 2017 by the time IEM was gone, right? What I
Last
want
year of IEM was also a disaster.
Yeah. For me, if you need to have the same two principles, Riot needs to control it, and you need to have franchise teams. I would literally just do a global circuit. Now I know it's just an FMO tool to Riot, okay, because like we want to make it like when these teams meet at international events. It's like I think that novelty is fucking horseshit, and let me tell you why. Teams used to not play each other, and there used to be only one international tournament, and it was called World. And in 2015, they brought in a tournament called MSI. This was not the first time MSI was held. The MSI was played under a different name the year before. In 2014, it was just called All-Stars.
All-Stars.
That was one of my first live events I ever watched. It was fantastic.
It is literally MSI in everything but name. So do you know what I count it as? If to me it's an MSI. And when T1 won All-Stars, I count that, because I don't care what you name the tournament, I care what the tournament is. If they just kept on calling it All-Stars, that event would have that prestige, but then they changed it to MSI. At the time, you can go watch this, people were talking down MSI. That MSI is not that good, the teams don't really care about it. That's now died. MSI is like a big thing that like people big up.
And by the way, in terms of taking it seriously, like All-Star, like there was some memeing, but it was ridiculously hyped because it was at that point, for those of you that don't think it was, like maybe it wasn't serious or whatever, just look at the OMG SKT games. There was some of like the most big dick shit from SKT of all time in that era, where they ended up playing 2 games versus OMG. And reminder, they played in 2013 Worlds groups as well, so they had a bit of a history. There was a little bit of weird bad blood there as well because of some stuff, which I think there was like some weird kind of animosity between OMG and SKT because of some things which happened at 2013 Worlds, but I can't quite remember what the wording was. But SKT ended up giving OMG all their comfort picks, beating them on them, then the next game taking their comfort picks and beating them on the champions that they couldn't win with. How insane is that? That is like some of the most BM but crazy aura farming stuff that I've ever seen in League to this day, and that is it's just engraved that event into my mind. Absolutely insane, including they won a game with all of their world skins. They just won from anything world.
And that's one of the only time Faker used skins.
He's only played it, I think he played it in game 2 of 2016 Worlds Finals. He ended up playing it in Asian Games when they played all of the Samsung teams, skins with all the other Samsung players on the roster. He's only played it about 4 times, though, intentionally speaking. But like that tournament it genuinely was a hell of a tournament to watch. Like they did take it seriously.
And just to speed limit, so like MSI only becomes important because we've now done it every single year. So like MSI 2015, 16, 17, and eventually now MSI is important and people care about it. You know what I mean? Like tell a G2 player MSI isn't important, or tell Europe that MSI is important. When people fucking talk about G2 that went to all those finals and done all those things, what's the thing they brought up? Or MSI to beat SKT in that game series, and then they won the tournament, the only Western team to win an internet. You know what I mean? It's important, right? And because by the time 2019 came around, MSI was important, that G2 team is now held in mythos. You know what I mean? And that winning moment is like the crown jewel of that team, you know what I mean, and the world final, obviously, stuff like that. Had they not won it and just made all the finals, the mythos of that team just wouldn't have been the same. You know what I mean? It's the fact that they won something that's huge, only they done it. But you don't get that until you've done it lots, and you have to like commit to doing it all the time. There was that like for the Rift Rivals where the regions played each other, right? It just didn't work because they just didn't build up to the fact of like the teams caring and make it consistent and prestigious enough, right? I just hate fucking regionalised leagues. I think most fans don't realise they also hate regionalised leagues. Regionalised leagues take way too long.
I think there's not a story I can tell about Rift Rivals in terms of how much people didn't care about it. It's been long enough that I think it's fine. But like, I'm aware that at least one team was like insanely hungover playing that event, as in they cared about it so little They were like
Oh, probably for
really, really drinking.
It sounds like every UK LAN event I went to back in my point day. If you weren't drunk during group stages, you're a pussy. That's just, that's
So, but as this is obviously years and years ago
Yeah.
now. I think this is like 2018 or something like that. Maybe, that was the first event. I think 2018, maybe 2017. But yeah, there were teams which were just like, look, this is like extra time we got to put into the schedule, and yeah.
the problem is, this is the problem, because obviously with what you're laying out, Keire, like if someone says like, oh, could you come up with a format that's way more entertaining? Yeah, really fucking easily. The issue is, and I'll just lay out one possible format very quickly now, and we'll see the obvious issue. What you should actually do is, because people do care about regional rivalries and stuff like that, but here's how you do it. You have a tournament, which is literally like the LEC just becomes a qualifying tournament for one of, let's say, 5 international events. And you just have 5 like gauntlet tournaments where it's basically best of 5 from the start, and it's just you play. Yeah, but here's the problem. Obviously, that would be fucking awesome, but how the hell do you justify being a professional League of Legends player if you play for SK and you literally play one competitive best of series, or 2 if you've got double a limb, and then you're out, and then you have to wait until the next one? Like, the reason domestic leagues exist is so you can actually have an ecosystem where multiple people can be paid to play the game, basically.
Yeah, because here's the problem. It all takes too long. This is my point. League of Legends players aren't playing enough games. This is the joke. Like I've literally shown this so many times. Dota goes through Dream League, which is like 2 LECs worth of games in 3 weeks, right? As in, like, how many?
Yeah, but that's not the issue. The issue is the international logistics. So, for example, if you want to have loads of like international tournaments, okay, you can condense the domestic league to fit in, whatever time frame you want, make it as reasonable as possible, I guess. But then it's like Riot would have to do what they're trying to actively avoid, it seems, which is they're trying to financially downscale while you're having to add like however many fucking international tournaments that people from all corners of the globe have to get to, like, X amount of times a year.
This is the thing. If it ever becomes this case of we can't hold more tournaments because they're like not cost a thing, then the whole game's a bogey, and I don't see there's no way to scale it anyway. Like, here's
correct.
Let me give you,
yes.
Yeah, no, but let me give you another problem. We invite Los Ratones to the league. We bring them in, right? So what are the big draws of Los Ratones? Reckless. Europe's little prima donna, right? The Bouse, the Swedish person who listens to no advice and is actually only a pro just now, and he's decided arbitrarily that his pro career just started a couple of weeks ago, right? And, a lot of it of Nemesis, Nymaera, you know what I mean? And you're getting to see this group of players under the Cadro banner, you know what I mean? And it's all like banter, and you know what I mean? And it's like, can this like upstart of like players who have role swapped and stuff beat the best that Europe's got to offer, right? And that's like interesting as a branded little like story, okay? Now, what if I take the Bouse out, right? I don't have Reckless, okay? And Nemesis and Crowny go on to other actual LEC teams. And I've now just got 5 unpersonal people, a bit like the jungler, I can't say.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Right? And I just do that, and they go 0-11. And they go 0-11 again. And again, and they're terrible, and they're absolute junk, and they're fucking piss, right? I'm going to tell you, let me give you an example. Drew2 is playing an NLC, right? He's playing with one of the biggest streamers in the world at one point, Forzen, right? That was enjoyable for maybe 35 minutes, where it being like the whole like, and then the novelty of that kind of went now, because the story has to have legs. There has to be an actual chance that the hero slays the dragon. And the funny thing about the boss is, the Bouse is a meme, and I've said this to you all the time, the Bouse is an actual meme person, but he's actually good at League of Legends. Like, the things he does can actually win you games of League of Legends, because they are in there is a strategic coherency, like, to them, right? The problem is,
I actually have a clip, by the way, I do actually have do you want me to I know we can talk about this later, but I actually, just for the fees of access, do you want me to show you, like, one of the plays which I called out from him this week? Is this a good interjection?
Yeah, like, bring it up, yeah.
Okay, so we have a clip from how LRB MKOI, and this is with like, the first thing you notice in this is Bouse is like, 2k down on me when you think, oh shit, that's a bit rough. We're at Dragon 5s, this is actually really important, it's 31 minutes in, so this is like a truly late game thing. And like, it's just the balls on this guy in terms of the slaying the dragon. He's 2k down against
the clip is not up at the moment yet, by the way.
The clip isn't up. Is it
blank
not?
Screen. I've used the pinned link.
Well, we should have checked that one earlier. Okay, one sec. Let me try that one again real quick then.
Notepad time.
Is that not working at all? You sure?
No, it's not. But I will just cut you off anyway because we're going to talk about Lost Ratones gameplay in the next section, regardless. So we'll loop back to that.
So I'm going to finish off really quickly. I just hate regional leagues. I wish there was just more tournaments for people like qualified for.
Should be working, by the way. I'm not sure why it isn't. So
I really wish that what they call like League of Legends had never went into the direction of salary being more important than prize money. I think prize money always has to be a component of the lifeblood of your ecosystem because like winning and aspects of winning and like being able to come through and having prize money be a part of your like sustenance is really important in loads of like ecosystems. And you just don't have that, you know what I mean, in any aspect at all. The prize money aspect of League of Legends is absolutely like tripe. And I actually think the whole idea of like breaking down the regional league and allowing like the partner teams to move more freely and go to events all around the world, and then having regional qualifiers where like groups of players try and come through and qualify in those leagues is a lot more interesting. Because I've seen it in every other esports. You're going to get little flash in the pan teams that are going to be good for a little period of time, and you're going to get players from those. And they just don't happen in League of Legends because those players never get the chance to like shine. Like probably the famous one in Tier 2 League of Legends is the support player who used to be an ADC, Steelback.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Steelback probably could have maybe forced himself into the LEC at one point if it like had relegations, right? And the idea of like Steelback being back in the LEC and like beating people on like Pike and stuff like that is like hilarious. And he could have maybe had a second leg to his career if he was able to illustrate in the LEC that he was still good. But because of his reputation of being shit, which was based on his ADC play, he never really got to like have that second leg, and he was just kind of like a terror down in like Tier 2 for like years. And then eventually he got so bad again that he got dropped. So that's kind of like my rant about it all. I don't care like either way. I do think it's a bit shit for Riot if they just invite LRM, because I think it's a lot of short-term thinking, and I guess a little bit like, particularly like KC. If I was the guys at KC, I would torpedo. I would torpedo my own projects.
It is your duty, obviously, to put up a massive fight if you're any of these teams. To be completely clear, obviously, if I was a team in LEC, I would not be making the same arguments that I am maybe saying now if I was part of Riot. But yeah, I think ultimately it's just like a logistical issue, and I think that is why now, because they were so slow for them to understand how important like the international play was, that it's just not recoverable at this point. In terms of short-term thinking, I think Riot has to be short-term thinking. As I said, I was never a doomer on this. Like, you can go look back at all the old podcasts and stuff I was on. I was always like, League isn't dying. It's all nonsense. It is, I believe, objectively in the numbers dying at this moment in time. So
it would still be huge though. That's the thing. Like, even in League's death,
the game will
be
be
massive.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
The game will keep going for forever. It's where the esports scene will survive.
I invite the death of League so I can get rid of all the fucking normies that like I have to listen to that absolute tripe. I can just get it down to a natural 40,000 people watching like a fucking broadcast rather than 400,000 people being like, "Holy shit!" Hashtag Things Faker does, and he's dead on my screen. Like I can't handle it. I just can't. My brain's too rotten.
Anyway, moving on to the actual games and the actual teams obviously participating in the league. This week has set up a pretty crazy playoff picture because basically only one of LR, SK, Shifters and Heretics will make it into playoffs. I mean, I'm assuming KCB are done. Like, no disrespect, but it seems almost...
So they're mathematically done now.
Okay, they are actually mathematically... Okay, so they're done anyway. They're gone. See them. But yeah, these other teams, I assume it's going to be one of four, basically, that get in. So obviously the question is, who is that going to be? Now, we were discussing, I think it was last week, how many more wins LR would like realistically need to like get in, and we're like at least one, and this is where they're on 2 wins, by the way. But like, if realistically, probably 2 more. Now they might need 1 more win, unless I've done my maths incorrectly, to like actually guarantee getting in. So that is a crazy threshold. The first thing I want to ask you, I'll start with you, Keire. Are you surprised at all that the teams are where they are, which teams are like not safe yet? Like, do any of these teams that are not yet safe surprise you? Do you think any of these teams would be better? Do you think any of these teams shouldn't be in a race for playoffs? Like, what do you think of this group of teams at the front?
Technically, obviously, by my placing of Los Ratones at 11th and like Natas Vicia at like 12th, again, I'll paraphrase, Natas Vicia is more of an ignorant placement, which I just don't know them, like the players, like as well. Los Ratones, I think, I am surprised. Okay, on the outset, I am surprised, but given the context of the direction of the quality of the league, I am not. As in, like, if I knew, like, nobody knew G2 was going to play the way they are. But the minute you see the drop-off of the likes of, like, G2, somewhat like Movistars, Heretics, etc., I think their positioning, Shifters, I think their placement is quite, like, just. The two teams that I'm actually most surprised by are Shifters and SK Gaming. I think SK Gaming are one of the teams most affected somewhat by the nature of the, like, the BO1s, where their games could have like turned like the most, you know what I mean? But you know what I mean? Like here's the thing, the Lost Ratones like wins are like legit, you know what I mean? They're not like like, put it this way, there's not anything we've not seen. There's not like they're like cheesing or anything in ways that like we've never seen from. And people are like
on the track game to late game and out team fighting. That is a legit way to win.
Yeah, exactly. So like it isn't like and here's the thing, the whole like I've said this a lot of times to loads of different people. The whole Lost Ratones momentum, I come off seeming really numb to it. But I never thought they were that bad in the first place. That's you know what I mean. That's why I that's the thing comes as I never thought people like the Bouse, Nemesis, what do you call it, Crownie were bad. I never thought they were going to not win games. I actually thought that more likely than not they would win like 2 or 3. They've won more than that. Go them. Also didn't realize the top end quality of the league was going to be like as bad as it was, particularly from teams. Particularly from teams that like stuck together. But Lost Ratones can't control that, but when that becomes a factor, they can pounce on it.
I'm still, by the way, getting messages from people like after every LR win, be like, "See," replying to my Valia comment, I'm like, "Mate, he's the weakest player on the team. Like, don't at me about fucking Valia. He is still the problem."
That is actually the surprising thing for me as well. It's like actually Valia's like messed up an early invade in almost every single game. Now he's actually a pretty good late game team fighter. I won't take that from him, but realistically, the kind of shit he's doing in early lanes and early invades, and we saw it again today, actually, with the invade, which he ended up losing the 51. Although that was him being invaded, so actually maybe not that one. But yeah, Valia has opened up a loss condition every game, and that has been really concerning. Like, this guy clearly is not reading the map very well.
Yeah. But yeah, Nymaera, before we move on to speaking about other teams, I believe you did want to discuss this LR.
Oh, yeah, sure. I think we sorted out the clip stuff. So I just wanted to like showcase, and for those of you who are audio only and listeners, this is from MKOI LR. It's about 31 minutes into the game, 31:30. This is around 5th Dragon in this game, which is where we see effectively Bouse managing to outplay from 2k down in a huge team fight. So I'm actually going to slow this all the way down for people who are watching on the video as well. So the big thing which LR are looking to use is the Poppy ultimate in this fight. And the other team has a Cassante. So typically what happens with the Cassante when you see a Poppy on the other team is you just stand in front of them and you press W because you're unstoppable. Therefore, the Poppy can't do anything about it. So Mirwin is positioning for that. He's in the middle of the river. He's trying to block off the angle for the Poppy ultimate. And Bouse kind of knows this. So Bouse tries to play a bit of a positioning game. So he charges up the ults, and Mirwin puts up the W. Mirwin, because he's pressing that W, basically makes his team cower behind him, as you meant to do. You meant to hide behind him, shelter behind him, and to say, okay, the Poppy ult can't find an angle here. Bouse also doesn't have flash as well. Now, if Poppy has flash, you can just charge up the ult, then flash to the side, and then ult. But one of the things which Mirwin falls prey to here is effectively you can't change the direction of your W as Cassante anymore. So if you're charging it, it will always go in the direction that you immediately press. And he goes too far forward with it because Bouse, despite being 2k down and like not being particularly strong in this game, says, okay, well, I can just step to the side, potentially put myself into oblivion, because if he actually gets hit by a Cassante W here, it's pretty much fight over because his ult gets cancelled, and then the front line to front line is just really, really bad. And then he goes way too far forwards, and Bouse gets the angle through it, because it's not like Bouse is actually going to back off and try play defensively. Even though he's down, he doesn't lose his aggressive mindset, steps to the side, and then he gets a huge angle onto all the people who were previously cowering behind the Cassante, going, okay, we can just wait it out. Use the Cassante W. That's what it's here for. Because Mewin misjudges where he is. He goes a little too far forward. He actually should have stepped back a little more and then held his W for a little longer. Because he misjudges that, ends up completely ejecting a couple of people from the team fight, ends up ejecting mid and support. Mewin's ended up using his W in the wrong way anyway. In fact, another thing which Mewin could have done actually is he could have actually just W'd in an angle backwards, because even if it doesn't end up blocking anything, at least he's going backwards in the right direction. So Mewin makes a mistake, goes too far forwards, ends up, I think, doubling the wrong way, although he could have bumped into the pop, he could have worked that way, right? But then because of his misstep and Baus not losing his aggressive mindset, he ends up getting what is effectively a dragon and team fight winning ultimate from that. So I think that's just a nice little example of how Baus, even when he's down in a lot of finances in the game and a lot of resources, he's just very good at finding aggressive angles. And I think that's one of the key things about LR is that if they get to late game, even if they're behind in gold, they still retain the playmaking mindset. And I think that's worked very well against teams which haven't been able to close out games, because eventually it gets to a point in the game where LR can then team fight against you again. So Baus is a really good example of that, and we saw it there.
Yeah, he also had a very good Poppy game, particularly around objectives, I think, this week. Like, his Poppy was really good. He was getting, like, consistently getting 2-man ults and stuff off. So, yeah, no, good. Definitely a good week for the Bows. Now, again, back into this playoff picture in terms of, like, who we think is going to make it, who we think is going to drop out. Keire, what are your sort of general thoughts on this? Obviously, we've talked quite a bit about LR amongst the other teams. Do you see like a clear team where you're like, these guys look like they have a bit more than the others and you expect them to get through?
Let me have a look, think.
By the way, while you're thinking of that, I have to say, I'm going to say this is like Hall of Fame worthy social media. This is actually probably the best piece of social media, and maybe one of you can correct me if you can remember something better. I think this is the single best piece of social media ever done by a social media account when Na'Vi beat Shifters and used the Pixar. That was so good.
I'm going to say the Empire Twitter guy is that phrase. The fact that the Dota Empire Twitter guy is literally, you say in the Dota community, you say the Empire Twitter guy, and everyone would know who you're talking about because he was just that legendary. He was like basically like, do you remember like the old like Riot, like the old meme accounts like Riot Cassidon or like Riot?
Or the originating, was it Rogue? Their original Reddit guy.
I have the clip. If you want to show it on the podcast, by the way, I actually do have the.
Oh yeah, for anyone who's not seen it, yeah, play this. It's just brilliant. Oh, it's so good. But you know what? The saddest thing would have been if they'd lost and we'd never got to see this, by the way. Imagine. That is so good. Oh, my God.
It's actually, so the actual individual post is amazing. The Empire, like, Twitter guy was genuinely, like, off the scale. Like, he had, like, celebrities in, like, America, like, replying to him because he had, like, this large Russian, like, account with, like, 200,000. So he had, like, accounts, like, what was the one? It was, like, was it Pitbull? We had like Pitbull or something tweet out at like someday, you know what I mean? Like, because he had like paid, you know what I mean? Like those like celebrities that you can pay to like tweet out something. He had like Pitbull like must have like worldwide like tweeted out like fucking a team's been eliminated from fucking playoffs and that. And
like Cameo. He used Cameo. Yeah.
Oh, bro. But there was so much, bro. The stuff that guy was like doing, and then he'd like reply to it being like, "Oh my god!" Of like, even you're into Dota, I can't believe this. So, but beyond that, that is amazing. Pure banter. Shout out Navi. All the CIS guys are top tier in terms of like
just in general. Those like, how good has Navi been just this split in terms of the way that they play, the level of play that they're showing as well, the social media. Like, they're actually interacting with people. Like, Navi are such a breath of fresh air. I'm glad
they replaced Rogue as well. That's the best thing.
Another KW, Navi. Yeah, it's a good organization. By the way, I didn't know the players. I said the term. I didn't know them. Holy shit, the Navi guys who've had a top tier Dota team for 16 years, and a top tier CS team for 20 years. They can pick esports players.
And on that note as well, So, Rilek, the jungler who has completely taken the jungle by storm, and I think he's been one of my favorite players to watch so far. They had him signed a split before he could even play for them, remember? Like, they had him signed, and they said, look, we're getting him for this year, because it was Tega who was playing for them last summer, and basically said to him, look, we're sorry, like, we're going to be going with Rilek for next year. And obviously, we felt, he's a bit hard done by, blah, 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 and I can understand that. But then looking back at that now, you're like, well, they obviously knew that guy was an absolute wonder kid, and they've made the right decision.
I've always alluded to it. Relic is currently my MVP for the whole split, by the way. As of right now, it's really close.
It's actually legit.
With all the context of the MVP folded in, he is currently the MVP.
I've got
the other thing
there as well, by the way. Maybe not.
We'll come to that one. But the team that I think here's the thing. I think by game score, it should be Team Heretics. But I think by gameplay, it's SK Gaming. And that's the team that I think will be chasing Lost Ratones.
And Lost Ratones are currently in the driver's seat. They're currently the ones in the playoffs bracket. So what would need to happen is effectively, Heretics would need to... So Lost Ratones would have to... Heretics would have to win an extra game over Lost Ratones. In fact, basically, Lost Ratones would have to win no more games. They have to win no more games.
Yeah, so Lost Ratones have a
They play SK, by the way. They play SK. So
technically, yeah.
Shifters are in a bit of a shit spot because they need to win. They need to win 2 because they can't head to head against Lost Ratones because.
But Nymaera, Shifters play KCB and SK.
Which is actually winnable.
Yeah.
SK have not played Lost Ratones yet, so if they beat them, they would get the head-to-head, and they would actually be able to leapfrog.
By the way, these last week games are an absolute banger, by the way. The fact that all was potential playoff teams have to play each other is so good. And then
if SK win, they have pole position effectively. That's really scary for the Rats, actually.
But Heretics, Keire, have to play KC and Fnatic.
Yeah, hellish. That's what I'm saying. So by score, I like Heretics. By actual gameplay and strength of schedule, I think it might be SK Gaming that just pip it slightly. And if I'm Lost Ratones, I am narrowing in on that SK Gaming game. By the way, with all my Yamato should be sitting here down the matrix, fucking looking at everything, the win condition.
The memento screams in front of him. Yeah.
Yeah, because to me, that's the game that really matters, and that's if you're Lost Ratones, the value of you making playoffs cannot be undisputed, by the way, here. Yeah. That you're literally talking about here that Riot execs, what Rich was talking about, might offer you a franchise spot or not based on whether or not you make playoffs. Because remember, if they make playoffs, the way the league, the Versus playoffs is structured, you're going to get to do, they're going to be the lower bracket team. So they're going to get a BO3 minimum, I think. And it's going to be versus a team from the lower seed or from the upper seed who's lost. So you know what I mean? It's not completely out of the picture that they could get someone that they can beat. You know what I mean? They could make a run in the lower bracket. I'm not going to say they could win the whole thing, but
yeah, they get minimum 2 best of 3s in playoffs at that point. And obviously the golden miracle run is somehow they make it to a roadshow, and at that point it's what the fuck? But that's going to be.
But that's what you're playing for, because that game is so important. And if you're the SK Gaming guys, well, this project has got a lot of weighting. Now I know LEC's already doing this thing where it's LEC Versus, it doesn't really matter. If you think that more fools you, but
I have to say, there are a lot of teams I think have been very arrogant in LEC this split so far. It's really annoying. It has really annoyed me. But excellence is a habit. You build it on the day-to-day. And a lot of these teams, there are reputations which are being tarnished here a little bit. Well, more than that, a lot of it, really. And I think actually in some ways, the inclusion of Lost Ratones and the fact that they're actually winning games has really, I think, shone a light on the teams which maybe took it a bit easy. I think it's really shone a light on them because I think there are some teams which have been lazy this split so far. I think they've been arrogant. I think they've had a bad meta read. I think they've been quite slow in their way to adapt towards the new meta and things. And I think that if the Rats make it into playoffs, that pressure actually amps up a lot because momentum would absolutely be on their side at that point. And I suppose we'll get to see the difference between a best of 1 and a best of 3, how that variance changes. But there could be a lot of teams left with egg on their face more than they already have got. So
imagine you're an LEC team and fucking the Rats make it over you. The fucking market that should be up by you. Kind of you get like the badges on like for winning the championship, like Rich, like the Champions League and that. You should have a permanent brand on your fucking LEC stack
of the Rats.
Yeah, the market, bro. You should honestly for fucking the Rats. Out fucking placing you, and you're just permanently got the Los Ratones etched onto your kit forevermore. It's like the market.
So again, I floated this last year, but like if you for international events, so imagine you did this where effectively you have to like sign the check or sign the ticket for the other team going into playoffs, and imagine you have to do that.
No,
I'm just have to go there, give my seal of approval, sent to playoffs by SK Gaming.
Kidjo just standing there with a full viewership, all watching him with a check. Oh,
imagine having 200,000 people watch you sign a plane ticket for Rats to go to a roadshow.
Yeah. By the way, should be worth noting that because of what Nymaera has intimated as well, a bunch of these other teams aren't actually safe anyway. The ones we haven't talked about, technically. Now, a couple of them will be because of head-to-heads that I don't have on the top of my head at the moment. But technically, I think Fnatic, G2, Movistar, and Vitality could all actually be needing to win at least one game.
So the only teams which are safely in playoffs are Karmine Core, Giant X, and Navi.
Yeah.
They're the only three mathematically safe teams. Now, chances are effectively Fnatic, G2, MKOI, Vitality, like they will end up, I can't remember, so we still have Fnatic G2 to go, right? So that will be, like one of them will make it in off of that. MKOI, they play Vitality. So basically one of G2 and Fnatic at least will make it through. One of MKOI and Vitality will make it through because they'll get to 6 wins and they can't get knocked out from there, I think.
Yeah, but two of those teams that we haven't even talked about are actually in legitimate need of finding an extra win as well. I mean, if Rats and Heretics won both their games, for example, one of those teams gets pushed out if they don't get a win. So, yeah, we've only really focused on these teams nearer the bottom, let's say, because that is probably what's realistic. But, I mean, a lot can change after day one of week 4. But, yeah, I mean, Nymaera, what are your, again, focusing mainly, I guess, on LR down, which team do you think is best equipped, if you had to guess, to sort of make it in? Do you fancy LR, or do you think one of these other teams is more likely?
I think it's all going to come down to the LRSK game, right?
That is such an average game.
And that game actually is really interesting just by the analysis, because I think that Wunder is going to tear Baus a fucking new one. Because Wunder has been playing really well, folks. I didn't expect him to play at this level, and I didn't expect him to be playing carries and winning through that. But actually, he's been playing really good carries. You know, the Rise top today was actually pretty good from him on an individual level. I really liked his cannon. And I think that Baus has started to stabilize things, but I think Wunder is a pretty hellish matchup because he has enough champions to randomly counter your stuff. And if he gets ahead, he will win the game through that with the style that he's playing right now. However, I think that Leader's a lost condition for SK. And I think if Nemesis gets ahead there and you know, Leader tries to blind pick something and then Nemesis gets a really good counter pick, that's a win condition for Lost Ratones. So that's a big problem there too. You know, I think that Skeens has been doing okay. I think he's been one of the more stable members of SK, but I think that I don't know if he'll be punishing Velia in the way that some of the other junglers have. So that matchup itself is already very close. So I still think SK, just by weight of it being just one game they have to win against Lost Ratones, who've, you know, they've shown some lower level as well. Let's not kid ourselves about that. I think SK are the ones which I would favor to make it over Lost Ratones if it's going to happen. However, I think Lost Ratones beat SK off that. I think Lost Ratones I think they're in. I think they beat SK and I think they're safe.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. I'm feeling, you know, a tiny bit smug because I was very low on SK, but at the same time I was also low on LR, so I can't be too smug, I guess. But yeah, no, that seems to me like quite a likely
problem. Wait, I thought you were pretty high on SK. I thought you put them like high.
No,
okay, all right.
Really low. I think I had them 10th, maybe. But yeah, anyway, a team I don't think anyone is currently super high on is a team that we should probably talk about a little bit, which is MKOI, who lost this week both to LR and to Heretics. So again, we all had them top 3 coming into this split. What's going on, Keire? What's going on with our boys in Spain?
So Jojo may have had one of the worst individual weeks of a mid laner ever. So basically, there was no date you can lose to. Anivia just getting caught all over the fucking place, losing to Theron, like just getting solo killed of Theron, like just awful, right? Super was like really like sporadic, like really high highs and then the occasional mistake. You know what I mean? Like, bro, he almost had the thingy game in his hands, the Heretics game. Super almost carried the Heretics game on Blue Gun Aphelios. If he doesn't try and flash onto the black line and go into the Ori ball, he kills everybody there. And it's like, bro, those little decision makings. He gets caught mid with like the Brawl and killed, that gives away Infernal Soul. Like, just this is the thing. It's so regular with Super. It's part of his identity. You know what I mean?
Well, week 1, we saw without that. Week 2, it came back a little bit, but I thought we'd at least get a bit more time without him going back to that.
I think Merwin looks pedestrian. I think Elioya and Alvaro's link-up play is basically bordering onto like non-existent. Though I think Elioya individually is playing quite well. Hardly like peak levels, but overall like quite well. And I think a lot of the strengths of the team, which are characterized by like strong map coordination, strong skirmishing, but weak team fighting, well, they've lost their strengths. I feel like they're very disconnected on the map. I feel like all the players are kind of doing separate things. I think they're relying a lot on individual like player strengths and small draft edges in those like angles. And I think it's really disappointing because fundamentally at the end of the day, this is a team that was, for me, it should have been a front runner for just continuing from where they left off, where I feel like Winter has just completely like from the level they were at Worlds in summer, I would say they're maybe like 40%, a third worse. You know what I mean? Like they've regressed to basically how they were Winter last year, almost. You know what I mean? Which I just don't think is... They're not the worst offenders. There's another team in the league who I think will be able to easily identify. But I do think you really need to consider like kind of...
Well, let's be kind. Their game is 2.
Yes, there we go. The only thing that saves them for complete embarrassment just is the complete collapse. We'll call it a collapse. It's not really a collapse, but just how poor G2 have been in light of other factors. But yeah, that's been my assessment of like a lot of the weaknesses right now of MKOI.
Yeah. Nymaera, what do you think has happened to this team? How do we legislate for this?
Arrogance and laziness. They've had a bunch of games which were very, very playable. They did the right stuff. You can clearly tell they're a good team in many phases of play. And someone, just for inexplicable reasons, takes an unsafe lane into the route into the jungle, or makes just a random play which is not connected or not well executed and just dies. And I think particularly Jojo and Super are those games are on them, really. I think that Alvaro's been fine to whatever. I think he's been meh. He's not been special. I think that Merwin, I'm probably a little bit higher on him than Keire is. I think he's been, again, fine to good. I think that his laning's been pretty decent. I think his team fighting's been I know that we shared the one clip earlier of him kind of messing up the W or whatever, but I think on the whole, Merwin has not been someone which I immediately say you're problem number one. But like Jojo is a player which is massively focused on laning. Like he's for every part of his career, whether it was on EG, C9, on MKOI as well now, you can name whatever team you want. He has focused on laning. He's getting solo killed by Seren. And I'm like, okay, sure, I'm not trying to dunk on Seren too much, but Jojo shouldn't be getting solo killed by like anyone, really. I think actually Vedi actually made that exact point on broadcast session now thinking about it. Jojo shouldn't be getting solo killed by anyone, really. Maybe Caps on a good day or whatever, but because Jojo is so focused on laning and often has picked for laning champions as well, this shouldn't be happening. The fact that he's dying so easily in lane, giving up such easy kills, is absolutely nuts to me for someone that focused on this era of his game so much. And yeah, it does feel like Jojo from last winter, where he felt like he was just not locked in. He wasn't seeing the angles. I'm not saying it's Berlin winter, 100%. I know we had that theory before, but have that in the back of your minds. And then his playmaking into team fights has been very sporadic as well. You know, he's had one or two good moments. You know, his Azir game on day of recording, so it would have been versus Heretics. He had one or two good shuffles, and he was the last guy alive at the end of the team fight. What do you want from a carry? But also, you look at his playmaking versus Lost Ratones, where he just flies into the middle of the team, gets no one with a shuffle, immediately dies. You think, okay, this is a completely one game. You've now made this questionable. And of course, yeah, Super. When he's been off of Yunara, this guy looks vulnerable. I think that his Yunara play was really good, especially when he's got the Lulu behind him in the back pocket. But even then, that's not been completely flawless. And yeah, I mean, his Ezreal game versus Lost Ratones, where he's just getting randomly chased down in the enemy jungle.
Yeah, very frustrating.
Yeah, it's yeah, that Ezreal death when he dies in enemy jungle topside, you're just like, none of your teammates are even close. What the hell are you doing here? There's just some nonsensical stuff, and the only thing I can come to think of is like they thought this game was over, they were asleep at the wheel, and they crashed. And that's the only thing which comes through my head. It's very frustrating because I have very high hopes for MKOI. They've kept together as a top roster. I think that their drafts have been fine, as opposed to like, you know, G2. One of my big problems is I just don't think their drafts are very good. But, you know, I look at MKOI and I'm like, okay, you know, bot lane laning phase has been pretty contested, you know, whatever. You've had some good moments in there. Although I think it was SK who really punished them with the Caitlyn Elise. They managed to come back in that game. I can't remember whether that was the game. But, and, you know, Mirwan's been fine in top lane. You know, and I feel like, you know, there are bits and pieces where Elyoya and Alvaro are linking up pretty well, or at least I think Elyoya's been playing pretty well. I feel really bad for him. I think that Elyoya's been sat there doing some really good stuff. The way that he dealt with, like, Velia's invade, where the Mundo comes in and he body blocks the Mundo Q to stop the smite combo coming through, so he ends up like winning the 50-50. Was really intelligent by him as well. But I just look at these carries and I'm like, guys, you're meant to be amongst the best in your role in this region. MKOI won a title last year. They were looking really good. This is not acceptable, really, and I'm actually really quite frustrated with them. It's yeah, excellence is a habit, and this is not what you form with those habits.
So what do you think the path back is? Do you think it is just as simple as they're not fully locked in, or...?
I think they're not locked in at all. I don't think they're locked in at all. I think their drafts are fine. I think that Mirwan and Elyoya are playing fine. Alvaro's playing fine. I just think that this team just has... You just need to cut out the bullshit. Like, legitimately, it is that. Which is, in some ways, easy. You're like, oh, you just lock back in, blah, blah, blah. They'll reach playoffs, it's fine. But
just lock in.
This team, I can't believe this. It is literally just lock in. And it's so frustrating to say that, because I wish there was like, oh, they've just got a bad read on XYZ meta thing or whatever. No, you just need to stop doing dumb shit.
Do you co-sign that, Keire, or do you think there's something more fundamentally wrong with this lineup at the moment?
No, like, I think my initial assessment was basically very similar to Nymaera's. I think I'm just a bit lower on Mirwan as well. Like, I think basically it's the exact same. It's just... You know what I mean? They just show no improvement upon what they originally had built. They've deteriorated in some ways. Games aren't as clean. Like, the thing is I'll just end up in another side rant, but like, this is an opportunity for you as a team in the LEC, with how bad the level of the LEC is, to just blow the competition out of the water in terms of like clean. Nobody's actually putting people under that much pressure to do like what is it called in tennis, Rich? Unforced errors, right? Okay. Teams are just basically making tons of unforced errors, not forced errors. Like, you set up a Baron perfectly. The person fucking finds a small vision gap, randomly Malranging it, sitting over the wall, Vi Qs, flashes into the Baron, steals it, right? That can happen to you one game in like fucking once in the league, right? It's not going to happen to you every week. You set up the Baron diligently, you place your champions correctly, you zone off the jungler, you have your ranges, you layer your CC, you bring the health bar down consistently, you control your DPS. Like, these are formulations, right? These were things Mad Lions, MKOI were good at before, and they're now bad at, right? Here's the thing teams are terrible at right now. This is something Ratones is awful at. The marking of a really good team is they can make a really good play, a good individual skirmish play, a pick, right? And then they transition that play, like the connecting tissue of how the champions move on the map, how you like leave wards, right? And you then make another play, or you reset, okay? And then you get ready to make another play, right? Los Ratones are quite good at making individual plays, but they're terrible at connecting play to play to play to play. Mad Lions are just as bad as Los Ratones in terms of, like, they make the really strong individual play, right? And then the next play, like, someone will walk, like, a stupid way and they dies. Or, like, you push a lane, like, too deep when the person's waiting for you to connect with, like, an ultimate that you require to siege like a turret and you die. And they are the types of things that you should be still really sharp on when you're in the same 5-man unit, but they're not, and it's quite disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I would co-sign most of that. I know that the carries are like maybe the biggest criminals at the moment, but I actually do think Alvaro's kind of fallen off a cliff. I think ever.
I think Alvaro's a bigger criminal than Super by far.
I think.
But dude, Super flashed into a shockwave to die today.
Yeah, but he almost carried the whole fucking game from the abyss.
And Alvaro was horrible today as well, by the way.
But my problem is like that. Like, look, Alvaro. My thing is like Alvaro hasn't been special. I think he's been mediocre. I think that Super has been largely very good. Like Xiao, who's had similar problems in the LPL. Like Super's had good phases of play, but his mistakes and with the
game
burden on
losing
his shoulder,
sometimes.
the game losing because of the amount of carry burden which he has to have anyway because you're an AD.
Exactly. So
If you make if you make a mistake as a support, very rarely is it going to weigh as much on the game as an AD carry. Like I think the two most important roles in the game to keep alive are AD carry and jungler, and most of the time AD carry is the more important one because you cannot fight without an AD carry. So Super just like randomly dying. And one of the reasons why I do just rate it against his play so much is, look, you are an AD carry that dies to lose the game an awful lot. He's very, very good, but I just weigh that so much more.
and I agree with you, by the way, 100% in terms of resource allocation. But me and my friend were discussing it before I came on today. Why is the game in that position where Super has to carry like that? Why is Super having to be on a Aphelios and carry an 8,000 gold Infernal Soul game versus Heretics?
Yeah, no, I understand that too.
Yeah.
Like, I do understand that too, for sure. However, I'm also like, I've just seen I've just seen a handful of games where like, my dude, this is like, you have so much gold, and like the Lost Ratones one, so I'm like, okay,
Bro,
this is
that's
you.
clip. He has a clip where he thinks he's draw your sword Junara, right? Okay, and goes melee mode against a Scion, eats a Q and dives. And he just like completely throws it, but then the next again fight he like finesses it. Like I'm not saying he's like flawless, but it's like the systems that make Bad Lions the really strong early to mid game team that gave him the platform to play like the 2,000, 3,000 gold leagues there have deteriorated. I don't actually think Super as a player identity has changed. I think he's the exact same player as he was in spring and summer. It's just those deaths are now more costly because you're now 8,000 gold down. You know what I mean? I think, well, he's maybe not the exact same player, maybe he's like 10% off the top. But I think you're just basically seeing the same evolution. Whereas I think like Alvaro games collapsed, Jojo's games absolutely in the fucking bin, and then Merwin is just way more pedestrian than I need him to be.
Yeah, I agree with that. But from one set of game losing mistakes to another, we do, before we leave, need to talk about this G2 Vitality game of the year so far. What a great game! What a beautiful game!
He'd barely talk about G2, to be honest.
League of Legends. Well, I think it was, part of they're not doing too well, but we're all like, do they really care that much? They're just coasting into playoffs. Do we really have reasons to be worried? I would suggest at this point we probably have some reasons to be concerned just a little bit. So yeah, for anyone who didn't watch this game, it was an absolute banger. It was complete cinema from start to finish. One of the most mistake-ridden games of League I can remember seeing in a long time. But we move, as the kids say these days. Nymaera, what was your thoughts on this game? And I guess the sort of current implications for both these teams?
Justice for Narco, justice for Narco. This guy is really, really good. Now, it's kind of sad for him that actually this game is in a really, really playable state. And then the last fight of the game was effectively both him and Humanoid sending their ults into the abyss and doing absolutely nothing and looking a little bit foolish. But up until that point, Narco was just doing some ungodly things on the Rumble. So I feel really quite bad for him, particularly. God, what are the other takeaways? Because obviously this game literally just happened before we came on show, so I haven't actually had time to review this. All I remember is that Humanoid should have lost this team the game. Like, falling that far behind on Yone should have lost them the game. And then G2 did a lot of content game inting and got him back into the game.
By the way, on the other side of Humanoid, that is one of the worst massive leads Azir games I've ever seen. Caps was fucking horrendous.
I have to say, I was chatting in my Discord about this while the game was happening, and people are saying like, "Oh, well, game's over." And I'm like, "Well, Vitality's composition does have a lot of ways to kill an Azir." And then obviously they somewhat did end up doing that throughout the game, but even then, G2 made it a lot easier for them than they should have done. Really, I think that I'm quite worried somewhat for both of these teams. This doesn't reflect well on either of them, really. And I'm trying to think who it's worse. It's worse for G2. Obviously, it's worse for G2, but I'm trying to think about the implications of Vitality as well, because I think this is just sadly more of the same from last year. I'm like, okay, clearly they have some great high moments, but I think, sadly, G2 has fallen into the same bracket. There is a similarity between them, where I just don't trust the way that either of these teams see the game. I don't trust the way that they see the game. I think that G2 last year, I kind of penciled them in as a checklist team where they understood what they wanted to do and they went from point A to B and they just went down the checklist and they made a lot of plays, and that meant that they were very good around playing around objectives. I think it worked really well for Skimond, who, once he was on that checklist, could just completely control the game. If they ever got ahead, it was very, very hard to beat them. I don't think G2 even knows what the checklist is now. Rather than even completing it, I don't even know if they know what it is. I think that their drafts have been amongst the worst in the LEC. I think that particularly look at the Lost Ratones game where they first picked Rise, let the Yunara go over, and they thought, oh, we'll lock the Aphelios to counter it, without realizing that then you've locked in 2 immobile carries. Just a great moment for a sidebar, by the way, in terms of why I think this is a mistake from Lost Ratones, from G2, and how they gave up these early mistakes, and this will continue to be a problem if they see this. The meta evolution, I talked about this actually quite early into the split. This is just updating people who might have missed that episode. Effectively, what the meta was we had a certain set of mid laners that were very, very good, and bot laners as well. And typically we ended up with stuff like Orianna and Yunara being the best carries on the patch. Then we had answers to them in the forms of like Syndra was in mid lane. In this case, there's stuff like the Rise as well, which is also very important. And then in bot lane, we had a couple of different options, but typically we came into something against the Yunara. Varus, kind of permanent, you won't see that anyway. Aphelios and Misfortune. What you'll notice about all 3 of those champions, very, very immobile. And if you look at stuff towards the mid lane as well, very immobile mid laners as well. There are not many mobile mid laners in the game. Now, the ones you do have are Azir. Azir is one of the few mobile mid laners in the game. And then you have Ahri as well, but only once the first strings come out, so we won't see them a best of 1, you'll only see them a best of 3, really. So what that means is immobile carries are the heart of the matter. That's why we see a lot of Draven. We talked about that in a previous episode as well. But there's also unlocked stuff like the Anivia, which is also incredibly fucking good into the Rise alone. But if you lock in an Aphelios, that is just completely game over. Both your carries cannot play into the Anivia. Aphelios hates long-range mages and zone control mages. Back when he was first released, stuff like Orianna and Syndra just completely ended his game. Ziggs as well. You just couldn't play against it back then. And while that's talking about a different game there, actually, I haven't really thought as much about this game from the Vitality game, but it really just kind of, this is just my overall point, even though I can't think of the specific example for this game, which is probably not very helpful, actually. I don't trust the way that G2 see the game right now, and that really, really worries me. And I don't think they are good enough. I don't think they have the aura. I don't think teams are afraid of them to get away with stuff, which is not really the right way to play the game right now. And on the other side of Vitality, I'm like, well, at least Humanoid and Kazi have brought the vibes. They can occasionally have this crazy high ceiling. They can fight back from whatever. And Knock is genuinely vying to be best top laner in the league. I think obviously Khan is better than him, but I think that Knock is not crazy far behind. But I'm not sure I trust their way of seeing the game either. There was that game in week 1 where they gave over something like Ambessa, Jace, Rise, Alistair in the same draft against SK, and I'm like, how did you give over all of these S tier champions? How did that happen? Neither of these teams, I think, has a good way to play the game right now. I just don't trust the way that they see the game.
Keire, what are your thoughts on this? I believe you have a couple of clips, maybe, to illustrate your...
No, my clips are actually from the FK Gaming game, because I think FK Gaming drafted the best draft I've seen in the LEC.
You did actually link 2 of the G2 ones as well, so I can go through them.
No, sorry. The G2 one is just like 2 fights. Sorry, those I went like a bit around. So it's like the 2 different fights. You can pull them up now, maybe.
I'll let me load them up first, and then
I just to talk about like just some of the breakdown of the stuff. Just to address like generally this game in general. I think G2 showed a continued strength of being able to bring numbers to mid lane, and for like Caps, like to use those number advantages and accumulate a really, really big gold lead. How effective that gold lead was used, stuff. I think my big holistic issues of G2 right now. BB ain't that good. Pretty fucking mid to bad. Not good at all. Basically, just not really doing it.
I have the first clip ready when you want to talk about it, by the way. But talk about
Dumond is a fucking god. We've trying his best, but you know what I mean? Even gods, because I think Caps this is one of the biggest drop-offs in, like, relative to the rest of the level of the league. Caps just looks pedestrian. Caps literally just looks like default character. Like, he doesn't look special in any way, shape, or form. But this is also co-signed with a drop-off in Hansama. Hansama is all really lots and lots of mechanical errors, mispositional errors from Hansama. And then Lavrov just looks like... This is another thing, the big regression I was talking about. Lavrov just looks as disconnected on the map from his jungler, and that the synergy that we're beginning to see between him and Skewmond just looks like it's completely evaporated.
Well, I'll say first 5 minutes of the game, him and Skewmond are pretty good at figuring either a play in bot lane or in mid lane. I think that's been fine, and we've seen them pull it up multiple times. I think there's just like they only know how to work together for the first like 5 to 10 minutes of the game, and then I just don't see much.
And then it falls to pieces. Yeah. So this is actually a pro vitality page. So we'll
start the first play now, Rich.
Yeah, start.
So for those of you who are watching audio only, this is GT Vitality. This is 29 minutes in. It's fight around a Baron. G2 Vitality fairly even. So
right.
Keire, take it away.
I like, okay, so that's one of the things I was talking about. There's a lot here that I really like. Okay, so you have Lavrov over the wall, so he can attempt to disengage one of the people, right? But he chooses to try and disengage Humanoid to make like a pick. But this then leaves a bunch of people susceptible to Fleshy, who they didn't then put any CC onto. And now you've got the wrong people tanking the Baron. A Rumble Ult's going to come over, and Kansama was left outranged by Karze in a completely different pocket because you had to try and bring your carries around the terrain. So if we go back to the start of the clip, Nymaera, this is one of the things I was talking about. Ideally, what you want to do is you want to start DPSing down this Baron, right? And just have Lavrov mark Linsas and disengage the Baron using all your beautiful disengage tools. You have Hansama's speed up eventually. You have
I don't think you should ever be looking for the actual finish on the objective here, by the way. You shouldn't. So they should be looking to turn this. I just think they turn.
Oh, you think we should turn it?
Because look at this, right? The problem is you have a flash ult Vi, so they're unstoppable. They are getting into the pit. You can't stop that Vi getting into the pit, I don't.
But I think Lavrov can mark Linsas and can just do headbutt pulverize onto him right now over that bit of terrain and burn it in 6 seconds.
I think there's a lot of different issues here. So I think
and at a bare minimum, you force Flesh's ult.
Yeah, because I think either way, G2 are playing with fire here. They're really playing with fire because you've taken the Baron probably too low. I think the terrain, because of the type of Baron pit, means there's an easy wall around there. Also, there's the angle of potentially Bard giving a portal over as well, which gives another way into the pit. So already I'm just looking at this like, okay, that's a problem. There's also like Knock will be in range for a level 16 equalizer. Where everyone's shredded into the pit. So immediately I'm here, I'm like, you do not want to be standing in this fucking pit. You do not want to be in here. So immediately that's an issue. But yeah, if you got any more points, I know I'm yapping. I'm taking the sample. But
No, it's an entire, because you could, I think for me, when I'm looking at this, G2 should be occupying the DPS should be occupying the southern part of the clip, right? What do you call it? The Alistair and Kasante should be marking the Vi, and then they should control the DPS with like Flesh's ult. And the reason what you want to do is basically either knock the Vi away, right, when she like charges like a fist bump up with a pulverize combo, and then either trigger the Bard ult. And then if you ever like, he's not got ult, so it's fine. It doesn't matter.
They don't even have the Alistair ult, by the way. What is this?
They don't have the Alistair ult, but I would still just be like looking to mark the Vi of everything. By the way, they don't have Vi ult, but they've got flash.
It's up in a couple of seconds.
But it says I think you can burn that Baron if you've got like the time on it, and Lavrov does the actual thing on it, or at least trigger Fleshy to use the ult on the Baron. Right?
Yeah, either way, I think like G2, I think they take the HP too low. You either gotta, you either like hard finish it. I think that's maybe a mistake, but even then, like the contesting it like this is.
But here's the problem:
really bad.
You now open yourself up to because the Fleshy hasn't been forced to use his ult on the objective. He then gets to use it to tie up 2 people on the engage. Hansama's access to the fight is actually really, really poor once Humanoid gets outside this trap. Lavrov's chunked because of like the health. He just dies. And
he uses his full combo and has nothing left for the...
Yeah, now Caps and Hansama can't actually connect with the fight because Karzi's pocket's just way too good. The only thing that can really save everyone here is if you go back, Nymaera, and right here, is when they engage onto this bundle, there's a brief second where, keep going, they get caught. If... Azir places his soldiers like right now, he can shuffle the stack away from people, and then like uses like ult as a disengage tool.
My problem there is that Kazi is still just completely unthreatened. I actually, by the way, Kazi does a fantastic job of positioning here. By the way, this is like a really good Kazi team.
This is when people talk about Kazi being a really smart ADC. This is deceptively safe because he's not next to his team, which is traditionally not with
flash. He uses it like the fact that he can use Valkyrie here and like he still has flash as well is like this guy is just in the complete zone here. There's zero damage that's going to happen to him. He's a level up on Hand Samper as well. Equalizer hits him, and then that's just like fight over. Honestly, fantastic fight from Kazi there.
Yeah, really good.
Just I haven't actually sat down and slowed this fight down yet up until we're doing. So this is me like figuring this out live while we're doing this. And again, for audio viewers, hopefully getting enough information out of this. I think G2 make a huge mistake getting the Baron either that low and not finishing it, or not looking for a fight, a turn where their front line is in a much better position. I personally think you're fucking playing with fire here. You know, Vi has ult, flash, Bard can stop the Baron. Actually, is his ult up to this entire time?
Actually, Vi won't have ult. Like, if they burst it, Vi won't have ult, but he has ult.
But they should do, because Bard can just delay the ult with his ult.
Exactly.
That's the thing. Because that will buy. So right here, he's got 8 seconds. I mean, it gets pretty close, actually. It does get pretty close. Either way,
it's a really fine margin.
Yeah, I think that with the equalizer, I mean, either way, he can just like flash Q into the pit. I mean, either way, I think you're getting completely through. There's a rumble ult into the pit when you're shredded to resist. You got a flash VIQ. Yona can fly over the wall as well. I think G2 make a horrible mistake contesting this. You're either looking for a very clean turn, and I think the front line is not in a position to do so because you don't have either of your frontline ults. You don't have all out to give you an extra bit of mobility and threat, and the Omni Vamp as well. You don't have Alistar ult up until he's well dead. Like, this to me is just G2 not understanding how to play a Baron in this situation, and that's really worrying because I've seen many a great team from BLG completely throw one games or contested games off of this. This was it was fine, and then they just completely throw everything at it, and the game is just so much harder after that point. I mean, they didn't lose the game, but against a better team, you should have done.
Maybe. I don't feel like the G2 of yesteryear would have played it like that, Rich. You know what I mean? Like that, like messy. You know what I mean? I feel like that's like a version of G2 that like I seen bits of last year, or like only little bits, but that's really messy to me. You know what I mean? I don't like. They look like Vitality look like G2, what other team they used to do to other teams. You know what I mean? And that clip there, it's like the badges have been reversed. And then, sorry, go on. Continue. You want to do the other clip?
Oh yeah, let's see.
I can get the other clip up if you'd like. I'm sure.
Yeah, no. To me, like, even though obviously this game was horrendous and it's so mistake-strewn, and I think there's lots of like Hans Sammer is like playing like a playoffs rogue Hans Sammer where he's just getting caught all the time in like really crucial positions and just dying like off cooldown.
Not in this game.
Not in this game. But in general, so far this split, like I think some of these problems, there's some overlap on the Venn diagram for what Nymaera was talking about with MKOI, where I do think some of these things will correct themselves. I don't think Hans Sammer will be that player in playoffs, for example, but you know,
I think there's actually more systematic stuff for G2. That's the worrying thing.
Yeah, I still think they're playing at a worrying level. Let's put it that way.
So this clip is same game G2 Vitality for audio listeners as well. This is at 39 minutes 29 seconds. So this is like hyper late game. There's a Baron still left for a minute on Vitality. They have like a 4,000 gold lead ish, but there's a Hextech Soul for G2. So Keire, take it away.
So what I like right now from the setup, if you just pause it for a second, Nako sitting in bush, building up heat, you know, out of sight, out of mind. This is an effective deception tactic. The best teams in the world can be like, okay, remember the rumble, right? But if he's not visually there, right, that the mental tax of other things happening, right, starts to like play on you. Love this pocket selection from Nako. Really, really nice, okay? I actually love the pocket selection from Linsas. He's going to basically try and look for...
because he's on the other flank outside.
He's on the other flank. So he's going to try and catch one of the carries as they bring the clock handle round. Vitality are going to try and do a sweeping motion. They're going to try and use Nako to push the enemy team into... Linsas, right? And try and sweep them through with their ability. One of the ways they're going to try and do this is Fleshy is paired with Nako. Why is that important? Well, Nako's champion doesn't have terrain scaling, so Fleshy can come over and place a portal for Nako if he needs to. The Vi doesn't need that. He's got an open playing field. He's got the leap with the fist. So I love this shape. Really good idea, right? Okay. Cars and Humanoid, a little bit too close together for me, right? You can see it, they're just stacked on top of each other a little bit too much. But I also like G2's shape as well. They've got their main damage threat, Hansama, on wave clear duty, protected by BB, and then you've got Caps with Spell Shield, you've got Labrov like in the back, marking a potential flank, right? I like it a lot. So you're going to play a little bit of section here, and we're going to let it like run. Okay, so Nako also building up heat, so he's got the Rage Splitter. Remember, Nako, the person he's kind of scared of is Labrov, because I think he's got the exhaust. So Vitality's going to make their pressure in, they're clearing like the wards, right? They've sacrificed a little bit of that shape, but it's going to return in a bit in a minute, right? Now, pause again. I don't like that, and instantly, it's all broken down. So now Humanoid and Linsas have swapped with Humanoid and Cars have swapped with Linsas, and this is already broken down for me. I don't like this anywhere near as much, because in terms of who's got access to the lane and the wave clear is all way more, and now Fleshy, they've got access to Fleshy, and where's the DPS going on to the people that are hitting Fleshy?
Yeah, all your DPS is like over here, Humanoid's push. Linsas is seen, so it's like a lot less surprise thing. And
it's fell to pieces. They chunk Linsas, he panic ult, Nako triggers, and the Grumble is awful, right?
Oh no.
Yep. It hits, he completely whiffs it, but he's going to get the Empowered Flame Spitter onto Caps, so here it comes, right? Empowered Flame Spitter, here it comes. Does he reach it? No. Dan's
no,
okay.
He has gold.
They force gold. Right, Labrov. Humanoid's going to attempt to hit this massive.
No. Oh god, no. Both your team fight ults are just, oh no.
So Vitality go from being in what I would describe as a 40-60 position, right? G2's strength is probably stronger, to an 80-20, 90-10.
Hey, oh my god, because Nutnaka has such a good game, and then just like that ult does very little, and then Humanoid, who actually had rescued this game a little bit from an awful start, also then decides to have like his worst ult of the game. Oh god, he missed.
And it's like
that's not even close, by the way. That is.
And can I just say that Labrov fucking exhausts Humanoid and not Nako. Nako, if he actually has like the big flame spitter here, would barbecue this team, but he doesn't have it. It overheats.
Just one last thing for Humanoid there. He's trying to basically get the instant frame perfect knockup because there is a flash on the Azir, and if he does hit that, like if he doesn't hit that, he's going to flash and kill them anyway. So you understand why he goes for it. But it's just basically Vitality went from a pretty decent position to missing both their solo laners ultimates, giving up their positioning to do so anyway, and it just completely throws the game into the abyss.
And here's the thing, G2 did not force Vitality to make that shape mistake. It's just something they couldn't recognise on the fly. But what I like about Nako is Nako, yes, he mis-executed fundamentally, right? But all the correct ideas were there, right? The person who plays that fight the best is Nako, even though he whiffs. As in, if you were to replay that fight 10 times, Nako will eventually play it like very excellently. Whilst the rest of like Vitality is just an abomination.
Oh, yeah, that's actually really pretty heartbreaking there. I like what Labrov did there, by the way, just to like make sure that Linsas is just a little bit harder for him to get into the play. Hans has a pretty decent fight, he's basically free hitting.
By the way, does Linsas's Q knock out of Humanoid's ult? That's the only question I've got.
We shall have a look. No, it doesn't connect.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Anyway, that's all.
That's the clips we have for that. Messy game. And yeah, I walk away from that just feeling like neither of these teams has impressed me with their vision of the game right now. And that's really sad because I think that both these teams are meant to be ones with, strong coaching direction, experienced players on the Rift. They've got very capable and very flexible players on the Rift. I just don't think they've hit the meta right at all. I think G2's first 5 to 10 minutes are fine. I think they're pretty good at getting Scheme on the level to make a big play at the 5 to 10 minute mark. I think they've done that fairly consistently on the whole. But outside of that, G2 really worry me. I don't think they're just auto-winning team fights that they were last year and years before that as well with different rosters. And Vitality on the other side, it's just like, again, it is just a coin flip of whether they understand how to make the hero play or not. At the moment, they're a deeply frustrating team.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest frustration in the league so far is I think we've got a super interesting battle for playoffs that obviously, we've discussed on the show or whatever, and that there aren't any truly god-awful teams necessarily other than maybe KCB, but the two teams that should be
Actually had some pretty good players.
well, yeah, as I said, maybe like even that might be slightly harsh, but like I think the two teams that we expected to be pace setting for this league are just not. Like MKOI and G2 should have been. We spoke about it last week. They should have been the teams that had a head start. They're in the middle of the pack. They don't look good. And yeah, you just have to hope that they look a lot better. And again, it's frustration because it's also things that have leaked over from last season as well. Like, I don't think G2's drafting overall has been wonderful, to be honest. I think they're probably one of the weaker drafting teams. And
I think they're one of the worst, yeah.
that is something that, honestly, they struggled with a lot of last year as well. I think that we give, historically, and it was deserved, Dylan was one of the best drafting coaches in Europe prior to Fearless. I think he never truly got to grips with Fearless until very late last year. And now, obviously, we're not dealing with Fearless. We're back to BO1s for now. But the drafting looks off to me as well. So
I don't understand how it's so bad. Like, I genuinely don't understand how it's like so poor. And it's kind of really fucking depressing. And I know, depending on the time, like just to highlight, right? I think, but I'm not joking. Globally, in the entire world of League of Legends, I think SK had my favorite draft today. As in, like, a draft that I would draft 100 times out of 100. As in, like, I agree with every single pick. The Rise top, Yon mid, Vi jungle, right? And the comedy of errors that had to happen for them to lose that game were spectacular. But it's really, and it's so sad. Again, I was talking to my friend about it. I think people will see them lose that game, right, and then not realize, like, bro, like, that game was like a dream. Like, what was going on in that game. Like, that was SK. Like, imagine if good people were playing some of those champions. Imagine if, a top team was drafting some of those champions with a jungler that actually farmed.
But anyway, yeah, that is actually going to be it for this week, guys. As I said, it is all beautifully set up for the final week of regular season. All the right teams are playing each other. So it really is a case of, if you win your games, you will get through, essentially. Everyone's still in it, apart from KCP, obviously. So yeah, no, going to be good. I'm personally hoping SK crash and burn, because then I will feel a tiny bit vindicated and good about myself. And in the end, Keire, isn't that all that matters, really? When it comes to...
Of course, that's all we need in life, me and you, Rich.
Exactly.
Our vindictive souls just need the sustenance of other people's disappointment.
Exactly. So yeah, that is going to be it for this week, guys. But thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.